Well, we've done it. We've gotten together again, boys, for another podcast. I'm going to talk about some USPSA stuff. We're going to talk about the upcoming member expulsions. We're going to, not expulsions, suspensions. That's the right word. We're going to recap the Optics Nationals. We are going to talk about the IPSC Pan American and the main event. And the reason that you're all here is he more meme or more man? Tony is going to walk us through his ambidextrous Checkmate setup. So that's really why you're here. That's really what you want to see. So real quick, to get some shilling out of the way, podcast hosting is, not free, but so if you'd like to save some money on some stuff, I can help you out. The ghostholsterdirect.com. If you use code GEARUP10, you can save 10% on your order. And you've got goaxil.com. You've got Humble 15, which will save you 15% on some pretty righteous Ear Pro. If you get the digital Ear Pro, that stuff is amazing. That's what I use at matches. And Gators Eyewear, there will be a link in the description if you want to follow that. There's no codes or anything, but it does take 15% off your order just by following the link. So Gators are pretty cool. I've been using those as sunglasses, really enjoying them. But first, we'll introduce our panel going around the horn. The first, as I mentioned, is the man, the meme, the legend. It is Tony. Tony, how are you?
I'm doing great. Having some German liquor.
Looking good, feeling good.
Yeah, can't complain.
And we've got exactly, I don't know, about 24 hours or so before this man has to be respectable and can't say cuss words in public and things like that. It is President-elect Yee-min Lin. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm just here to enjoy your big dad energy.
That's right. Bask in the glow of the big dad energy.
Oh.
Starting off real quick, just on a bit of news, a little bit of USPSA Days of Our Lives drama that is kind of going on, simply because, most of you have probably heard of it. And if you hadn't, I'll be the one to tell you. So if you check out the USPSA member section of the website, they post the minutes from the board meeting. In the most recent board meeting, they heard 3 of the 5 cases of the recent member suspensions. 2 of them were kicked down the road for Yee-min to have to deal with in about 5 days. But the other 3, they acted upon. Pat, who was the accountant, he was reinstated in full. He's back. But the 2 other people did not make an appeal. And before you say, oh, yes, they did, hear me out. The 2 other people are said by the board to have not made an appeal, so therefore they are suspended. That would be Ben Stager and Brett Wally. Brett Wally with a 2-year suspension and Ben with a 5. And, just following all the drama on the socials, Ben points to an open letter that he pinned to the board. I think it was like August 26th or 29th or something like that. But the problem is the bylaws are pretty specific on what form that appeal needs to be made, and if you read the letter, it doesn't quite meet the statute that they're going for. So with that said, they actually suspended him for 5 years, those are just kind of the facts. Whether you think that the thing's an appeal or not, I would say it probably isn't. If it was an appeal, it'd say something like, pursuant to section 4.13 of the USPSA bylaws, this will serve as my appeal. These are the reasons why you shouldn't punish me or explain my actions or whatever it is. And it was basically like, you shouldn't punish me or anybody else. You guys are dumb. And here's 6 pages as to why, is basically how it came across. And so regardless of how you feel about what it is he has to say or what he did, you can make a technical argument that it didn't satisfy the language of the bylaws. So that's really all there is to say about that. And turn the page on that chapter. I don't know, unless you guys have anything you want to say about it. I don't really want to just sit here and talk about it, but it is worth putting out there into the ether that is kind of what's going on with the deal right now. Any comments or moving on? And moving on. Okay. What do you guys want to do next? Do you want to talk about Optics Nationals, IPSC Pan American? Those are both going to be Yee-min heavy segments. Or do you want to start with Tony's mega awesome Checkmate setup?
Let's go in reverse order and start with the Tony's magical mystical setup that just left quite a few people speechless, utterly speechless.
So we're not allowed to show guns on stream, guys. So I can't show you the gun. But if you look at Instagram, or I posted it as a comment on my community page on my channel, there's a picture of Tony's super amazing Sigmate that he has. Why do we call it a Sigmate, Tony?
So the Checkmate uses Sig P320 mags.
Does it use them?
With some gumsmithing, yeah.
Tony is the most amazing gumsmith I think I've ever imagined. So Tony's just, let me paint a picture with words for what Tony's Checkmate is like. So Tony is shooting this year left-handed because that is his strong hand now, he's decided. Is that about right, Tony?
Yeah, I'm a terrible shot. I can't shoot, so it's all good.
So Tony decided that he's going to take the gun and make it left-handed, and because he's technically right-handed, but he's been shooting left-handed. So Checkmates come with a thumb rest on them, don't they?
They do.
And what side of the gun is that thumb rest on, Tony?
The wrong side.
The wrong side.
So it comes on the left side of the gun. And
comes on the, okay.
I thought to myself, I needed one on the right side of the gun, so I put one on the right side of the gun. Then I thought,
did you take the one off on the left side of the gun?
Well, no, I did. I bought a different one to replace it.
So how many thumb rests were on your open gun last weekend at the Area 4 Championship, Tony?
2, the right amount.
The correct amount.
Yeah.
So did we learn something about why maybe having extra thumb rests isn't a good idea?
No.
It didn't get in the way of your draw at all.
No. Okay, so having the thumb rest on the wrong side of the gun, it will interfere with the draw a little bit. I learned that the hard way. I got some cuts and bruises on my fingers. It's all good. Don't worry about that. But primarily, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It's only for stupid memes, and it was just for fun.
And so what else happened on your gun? Let's see. We had that. There was also the slide racker where
yes.
What happened to slide racker on your gun, Tony?
Wait, no, the slide racker was fine. There was nothing wrong with the slide racker.
Yeah, just that one screw that was totally stripped and it looked like you tried to extract it with your teeth.
Okay. That's a different story, but that had no effect on the slide racker.
That's a design feature.
Yeah, that's a design feature. For those who don't know, I was hand tapping the hole to put the set screw in, and I used a carbide bit. And you're not supposed to use carbide bits with hand taps because they're too rigid and they're too brittle. So the funny thing is, I snapped that exact carbide bit, drilling the holes for the thumb rest, and then I used the broken hand tap to try to drill the hole for the slide racker. So I was using a broken thread, and it broke again. So I was like, I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna bother drilling it out.
It was really, really well done.
Yeah,
that is
really
some that is some Wile E. Coyote School of Gunsmithing.
It's only a $3,000 open gun, right? It's
yeah.
Cheap.
And so the night before, so Tony drove up from his town in Texas to my town in Texas, so we could drive up to Tulsa together. And so Tony gets to the house, and we're playing with guns because that's what guys do who shoot USPSA. That hey, look at my gun, look at my gun. Yeah, can't wait. Let's dry fire. Just like that. That's exactly how he sounded. But Tony is pulling his slide to the rear on his Checkmate, and it is staying open. It will stay open without engaging a thumb rest or any. It doesn't even have a slide stop.
Let me explain the check engineering, right? Like normally, right, when you have a gun, like pretend there's a gun here, and I'm racking the slide, right? This is supposed to be a relatively smooth action, and then I pulled the slide back, and I let go of the gun, and the slide was still back. And at that point, I was like, all right, I think there's something probably wrong with my gun.
So then we look at his slide rails and like, what the hell is this on your slide rails, Tony? And it's like, no, it's good. Don't worry about it.
Motor oil is the best lubricant.
Motor oil is the best lubricant. And I'm like, Tony, we're going to lubricate it properly. So I have this bougie 2011 gun oil, gun butter, which is truly amazing stuff, really good stuff. So we, use a paper towel and wipe out Tony's gun and lubricate it. I'm like, all right, this is great. It's good. Got it properly lubricated. Now the gun will maybe work tomorrow, but it still has a hitch in the slide. And why is that, Tony?
Because the screws that went through the thumb rest and through the optic mount were too long. So they interfere with the slide. It was rubbing on the side of the slide as it was coming back. I thought this was a feature, so I let it be. And with some convincing, I realized, yeah, that's probably not optimal for a gun. So we made a late night trip to Home Depot 30 minutes before it closed to buy a file. And so I was filing screws in David's garage hours before the match.
Wait, have we gotten to the feed ramp yet?
No, that's next.
The feed ramp was before I got
next.
to Dallas.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so if you're using Sig Mags inside Checkmates, the feed, the geometry might not be perfect. And
so
my logic
was,
I'm going to use Sig Mags because they fit the same magazine
mag pouch. It's the mag pouch. It fits the same mag pouch.
I was like, if I already have Sig Mags, I'm not going to bother buying Check Mags, right? Like they're too expensive, even though they're only like $30 more. But I was like, I'm not dealing with it. So I bought a bunch of Sig Mags and I gunsmithed them together, by cutting a notch. And so you cut the notch and it seats. But if you don't cut it exactly, it leaves a little bit of error on the feeding. So then I had to Dremel the feed ramp a little bit. And obviously,
I'm not going
to take my time with it. I just clamped it down in the vise. And I was like, what looks right? Just go a little beyond that. What's the worst I can have? And they give you 2 barrels. My other one is rusted anyway. So I was like, all right, it's all good. So I'll either have a rusted barrel or a barrel that has a Dremel feed ramp. And I thought this was fantastic. So then I just went with that route. I did this an hour and a half before driving to David's house.
Yeah. Okay.
So just to paint a picture, if you imagine a Lance Corporal or PFC in the military that says, I need a haircut, and they try to do it themselves, it looks like a really bad fade. There's literally a shiny part on the lower side that's super shiny, and then there's a hard line, and then there's what happened here?
Yeah, that's my feed ramp.
Yep. But we need to go back even further, though. I mean, so why was Tony even shooting this Sig Mate to begin with?
What is the origin story of Sig Mate? Why do you have Sig Mags, Tony?
I was using an open P320 like a Genius, that's the proper gun to use. But after 2,000 rounds, the gun just can't, the takedown pin can't handle the awesomeness anymore. So it decided to shear on me. And that was, a few days before the Area 4 match. So I was like, all right, I need a backup gun. And my backup gun is the Checkmate. And the reason why I got a Checkmate is, long story short, a bunch of Austin people decided to all jump into open at the same time. And we decided on the Checkmate as the platform. So yeah, we that's why I'm using a Checkmate.
So you're saying there's a market for a super reinforced titanium slide stop?
No, probably
not market. Probably
not titanium.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, in order to buy a Checkmate and save a lot of money, you first have to spend thousands of dollars building up a Sig P320 AXG open gun, and then you buy.
All right. Knowing what I know now, I would not have gone down this route. In combination, if you combine all the P320s and all the Checkmate stuff, it is well over 11 grand. So I spent.
What else costs 11 grand, Tony? Tell me.
I could have bought a 2011 for both the left and the right hand for this amount of money, and let's just say it wasn't the smartest decisions I made in the last few months in terms of gun purchases.
Wait, how many bolt armory open guns do you think you could buy for that, Dave?
Oh, for 11 grand? Well, it depends which model you get, but you could probably get 3.
Ultimate Racer.
The Ultimate Racer.
You could have 3 of them. I don't have the Cathedral Echo. It's the Cathedral Echo and the Earthquake Effect. That only comes in Final Cut Pro, unfortunately. So, but let's talk about what kind of holster does that left-handed open gun live in, Tony?
Which one, the left or the right hand?
Well, so you have one double Alpha X holster? My
belt, I'm sad to say, costs more than my old carry optic setup. So I on my belt I have 2 double Alpha X's or Alpha X holsters with the Checkmate insert, so I can draw from the left and right hand.
No, two on the left, right? Just two holsters in case one holster goes down on the left side, right?
Yeah,
That's how you did it?
Sure. and two Henning T900 mag pouches, both oriented like this, so I can grab one from this hand and one from this hand.
So he has one mag pouch for each hand, basically. Like if he's shooting left-handed, he has one mag pouch to reload from, and if he's shooting right-handed, he has one mag pouch to reload from. But otherwise, he's going to be doing reverse loads with how the mags are going to be situated on his belt.
Yeah.
And that's what we call foreshadowing.
So what did you learn about your Checkmate when you decided to try and switch hands and be clever?
Okay, so I learned a few lessons. Well, I mean, we can talk about this, once we get to the Area 4 discussion. I don't want to spoil it for later.
Okay, all right, fair enough. We'll punt. So more Sigmate Open fun to come when we discuss the matches.
It's a disaster. Oh my goodness.
It was a glorious disaster.
It was, if you were to take a dumpster and fill it full of like dried horse manure, but put it on a raft and float it down a river and then set it on fire, that's kind of what Tony's Area 4 match was like.
Oh yeah, it was fun.
Flaming Elmo was proud.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But I am curious because Yee-min, since you've become president-elect, you have been stepping up your match cadence. So you got to attend 2 of the matches. So the angle I want to look at it from is like don't say what Yee-min thinks. Say what you think, that you were acting as CRO on some stages, right?
No. So all the matches I shot, from Carry Optic Nationals to the Pan American to Area 4, for the first time, I was actually just a competitor.
Oh, okay. Okay, so from a competitor's perspective, let's just do that. So I'm not asking Yee-min to throw any elbows or criticize anything, but through the lens of a competitor, I mean, let's start with Carry Optics National. So what do you think the shooter experience was like? What do you think the rank and file would say about this year's Carry Optics Nationals?
So Carry Optic Nationals, I think, was a pretty good mix of stage designs. There were some concerns brought up as far as, why do we have 4 Virginia count stages? And that's really more a function of stage flow than anything else. So in order to make sure that we had the appropriate number of stages across the zones, given the way that the rules are written out right now for stage design, the Virginia count is still kind of a fundamental part of the USPSA rule book. And in order to fit some of the short courses that we had, that's just the way that the cookie crumbles on that one. But as far as the challenges, the challenges were fairly good, spread across the board. One of the things that I think that we did differently this year that was a really nice add is the sponsor section was actually a designated stop within the match. So in zone 1, we had 6 stages, but we had 6 bays, and one of the bays was a stop where all the vendors could hang out. So in a way, it was kind of a scheduled 45-minute break where you could go and check out all the vendor areas. So we had Mark 7, Hunter's HD Gold, Beretta, KSS, Kilo Shooting Sports down in Texas. We also had Premier. They're a company that makes some pretty good hearing protection out there. And we had Henning and GX Products. And so the additional draw to that sponsor area, so it wasn't just let me go see what's going on. Beretta basically had a steel challenge type setup. And you could basically shoot that either with an iron sight Beretta 92X performance or the new Optics Ready platform that just came out. And so the draw was you could shoot it for free. And if you had the fastest time, you basically won a gun. You won one of the new 92X Optics Ready performance guns. And then there was a random draw to determine who got the second. So that was a really nice ad. People really wanted to participate because who doesn't want a free new gun? And then for Leif and Henning on their side, they basically had a bill drill set up, and it was paid $20 per attempt. And every day you basically took the amount of money that was collected into the pot, and the winnings were basically issued out from there. So Henning and Leif.
So gambling. We're gambling at nationals now. You're promoting to winners.
Isn't that called the
sport, you're not even president.
That would be called a side batch, sir. It's been done before at some nationals, but what it did is Henning and Leif basically both contributed a fair amount of product to the prize table. So it was actually really surprising how much people just came back again and again saying like, hold on, let me get another $100 and attempt every day to basically try to do a really good job at a build drill. So by the time we got when it was all said and done, they basically divided up by class. So your first C class, first B, A, M, and then overall. And the money was basically split up in that particular pot. And so it was actually, it drew a lot of attention to Henning, to GX Products, and to Stonebridge, who were basically all in the same area. So they went through quite a bit of product. There was a really good return on investment for their participation as sponsors. And I think, let's see, Isaac Lockwood won the build drill challenge. I think he came back every day, and it was a pretty impressive run. It was like a 1.1 or a 1.15 second run, and it was like 5 alpha, and then he got a lucky alpha hit. So you had to get all alphas in order to be eligible. Right.
That's a 115 is an unbelievably fast. Like that.
I think it was like 1-2 something. I think his fastest like on camera is like 1.
Yeah. I think that was the one that he posted.
No one's gonna beat him in that.
No,
that's unbelievable, man.
He's insanely quick.
It was pretty crazy, and I think he walked away with $3,000 cash.
Yeah, everyone was there for Carry Optics Nationals. He was there to win the Lockwood drill. So I mean,
yeah,
he's the smart one. You know, he was thinking outside the box.
No, it was really impressive. I mean, it was $3,000 cash for the pot, and I think another 1,000 in Henning and GX Products. So I mean, it really drove the attention to Henning and Life, and they're going to be doing something similar to that for the upcoming back-to-back Nats. So I thought that was a really good approach to
back-to-back. Who else besides Race Gun is or?
So we've got limited and open Nats coming up.
So we have nationals. We'll just call that nationals. What's the other one?
And then the other one is PCC production.
Oh yeah, that's still a thing. Okay,
it is.
I was curious.
Yeah,
because the Henning product makes sense at Race Gun. I mean, if you haven't seen the T1000 mag pouches, they are. I mean,
T900 mag pouches.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
the T900. That's exactly 800 more extreme than a 100, and it's all about the points, as we're well aware as USPSA shooters. So the T900s are really, really ingenious. They can be oriented almost, not quite indefinitely, but the axes in which you can adjust them, you can orient the pouches like the best way possible for your grip, and they just have flanges and good magnets. So it's not retained fully around it, but you just slide them right off. So, I mean, it's super fast, but the magnets are pretty strong and look super secure. I mean, Tony, you running around with your big stick on it because Tony only runs big stick Sig mags in his Checkmate.
Shoot open only, right?
That's right. Only shoot open. And so Tony was running around with a big stick slapped on one of the T900s. And most magnets will have issues with it either sliding down as you run or it'll rotate when you use big sticks. Like 140s and 155s aren't quite as bad, but something about going up to 170s makes them move, but they don't move at all on the T900. So, I mean, it is a truly legit product.
Yeah, Henning's always done a really good job with his engineering design, and every time he comes out with a new product, John Bautista basically takes one look at it and goes, "Hey, bros, you guys all have to buy this," and we all buy it, and we curse under our breath at him.
Yeah, they're not cheap. Those are, I mean, how much is each one of those mag pouches?
$100.
Like $700 for a mag pouch?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things, like there's some quirks to it. They will run higher than what you're used to if you're using like normal Ghost pouches, for example, or Sierra Speed or something like that. They run a little higher, and they also run a little further out from the belt. If you're running bullets out, if you're running bullets forward, then it's a little bit more manageable. But bullets out, it definitely feels like it takes a little bit of adjustment period.
Yeah, you almost don't want to run a full bullets out profile. I think that was something John and I were experimenting with, and you're almost running a hybrid where it's somewhat
like with bullets forward, you can tilt imagine this is the mag pouch and then this is the mag. You can tilt it off so you can break the magnets easier. But if you're using it this way, then you have like no room because your body is interfering from the other side. So you can't really tilt it up, but you have to slide it out, and it's a little bit of awkwardness.
How do they work for a left-hander, or Check, bro?
What
are you doing, Check, bro?
The funny thing is, there's certain mags that I load faster as a left-hander now because I just train more with that. Like Glock mags, I can do a lot faster with the right hand, but for the left hand, like Sig mags, I can load faster with it. But I still got used to like the big sticks. I'm used to loading into a 140 mag, but I have no 140 mags for my open Checkmate right now. So I got to get the 170 is a little bit too unwieldy. So I just have to like practice with that.
See, if you had a real open gun, you could get 155s, which to me are like the magic for reloading because they have a little bit more rounds. They're not as awkward as the big stick. They're easier for me to grab than the 140s. There's just a little bit more where you got a little bit more runway to grab them, but not so much that they.
I didn't have enough big dad energy to make a proper decision, so I made a stupid decision in my experience.
I'm sure you can probably get out your arc welder and weld some tubes together and make a 155.
Maybe.
It'll be amazing. So that was cool. It sounds like the vendor areas, that was a big positive. So it sounds like some ROI was coming back to the vendors in the form of just the vendor tents and vendor areas. That's pretty clever. Did the org kind of come up with those ideas, or did the vendors say, hey, what if we had a side match over here and, could we make it a stop? Do you know the origin of that? Or is that, obviously it's all before your time, but.
Not off the top of my head. If I, it sounds like it was something that was done. If I had to guess, it was something that was done in conjunction between the sponsors and with Jake.
Sounds like an idea of sitting down drinking beers and like, it'd be awesome. Let's do this. I'm like, yeah, it is awesome. That's what the way that idea lands with me.
Yeah, no, it turned out really well. I think one of the other things that worked out really well for us is that we had Josh Fralick come down with his social media group. And so I think that was something that you and I both talked about, Dave. They were able to go through some of the process that we talked about in terms of taking video and being able to edit it pretty much within the same day and then pushing that out on social media. So that was something that I think got a lot of positive reviews. Christian Seiler came up to me, the Pan American, was like, dude, whatever you're doing there, keep doing it, because it made me want to be there. So that was a really nice push on our end to utilize social media a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, I was really impressed with what Josh was doing. He did some great work. It was, you can go back and look at USPSA's Instagram page. They're probably mirroring it on Facebook too, I'd imagine, but he was doing vertical format, short form, like minute or less type pieces, but it was good videography, good editing, good creativity, used good music. It was edited to the music. It was very highly produced. It looked really good. And it created kind of a sense, like if you watch just a regular dude just blasting stages in a match video, it doesn't really create kind of this like, oh, I want to go try that, unless it's like a certain type of person. But the way that this was done definitely made it be like, oh man, that looks awesome. I got to get out and I got to go shoot. Like that was how it landed with me. And he did a great job. I don't know what you paid him, but it's probably worth it.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Like we've talked about this before in terms of having something that is a little bit more, on the moment release. So I think Josh had a guy with a computer that was editing and maybe 3 people out there just filming the B-roll and all the content. And they were basically mashing that together in a truck with, whatever internet access they were able to bring with them, and then pretty much release that same day. So I think that did a lot to attract attention on the social media side with, this is what's happening, right here and now. And from what I've heard and, from your observations, it was a step in the right direction.
So that's as a small tangent, who's the best shooter in terms of if all the IPSC regions went out and had to shoot off, which president would win? Why is it you?
We haven't got to Pan American yet. Hold on. We're still on Carry Optics Nationals. So what about, has anything changed about Talladega since last time? Are you still eating at Huddle House 3 times? Is there still nothing to do? How was the banquet? Those kinds of things.
Talladega is still Talladega. It reminds me a lot about where I grew up. They're still very welcoming. CMP has always been a very, vocal and positive supporter for us. We have a great relationship with them, and that's, something that we'd like to be able to continue if much possible. So the banquet itself, we had, it went well. I basically volunteered to be the MC. So that was a little bit of a interesting experience, just trying to make sure all the ducks are in a row and figure out what I needed to say with all the different sponsors to recognize. The food is what it was. We were contracted. The food contractor we had was supposed to bring, enough staff. And, again, it's COVID. Everybody's having a hard time finding staff. And so, we had enough food budgeted for what, like 550 or something like that. And, with the state of Alabama, it's kind of hard to just say, oh, hey, let's throw on some gloves and come here and start to hand out food, because you've got health code issues, that have to be sorted out. So, it's unfortunate that things turned out the way they did. But
so the food was there, but you didn't have anybody to put it on plates fast enough. Is that what I'm hearing?
Portion control. I mean, portion control is just one of those things where if you have to, in order to be able to serve in Alabama, you have to follow certain health code rules. And so, when you're short, when the staff doesn't necessarily materialize, you're kind of stuck with, okay, well, this is the situation we've got. And so it's kind of a rock and a hard place.
So did they give away all the food so that they ran out? Or, I mean, what are you trying to say here?
When it's self-serve, I think if anybody talks about buffet,
got it.
Yeah.
So you're saying everybody shoots USPSA as fat and ate all the food, so the people at the back of the line didn't have any food? Is that what you're saying?
No,
you're not fat. Tony's not fat. I'm pretty fat.
You're not fat.
Food.
Yeah, you have the rugby dad bod.
You've got that big dad energy.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of fuel to keep this big dad energy going. So I'd probably been part of the contributing factor of why the people at the end of the line didn't have any food. But, well, I mean, it looked awesome. I mean, from the folks that I talked to, it sounds like, it went about as well as last year, maybe a little better. So I guess, not forging any new paths with what was attempted at this year. But I mean, it was kind of a contingency match anyway, based on losing the venue. Or what was CO always scheduled for Dega?
CO was always scheduled for Talladega. It's the upcoming 2 nationals that were originally scheduled at the other place.
Got it.
So what's on the top list after Talladega is over, or what the contract with Talladega is over? What are you guys looking to next?
So as far as 2023 is concerned, we've already situated the nationals for next year. So Carry Optics, I think, will be back in Talladega along with the Steel Challenge World Speed Shoot. The other nationals will be held at the Cardinal Shooting Range in Ohio. It's about 30 to 40 minutes northeast of Columbus, if I remember correctly.
Okay, that's not too bad in terms of flying in.
Yeah, so there's going to be essentially an optics nats. Which, there's going to be an optics nats and there's going to be an iron sight nats. So optic nats will be PCC and open, and then everybody else using irons will shoot the other match.
And then Carry Optics has its own special match again.
Correct. And then after, what we're looking at for 2024, that's still up for negotiation at this point.
Why don't we just only have open and Carry Optics? Save some money. What do you think?
Well, we're already kind of saving some money next year by only having, let's see, right now, currently 4 nats that we're responsible for, as opposed to, I think this current year, the organization was responsible for 6 or 7.
6 or 7? How do you get to 6 or 7?
3-gun nats, 2-gun nats, World Speed Shoot, Carry Optics nats, race gun nats, and PCC production. Whew. So that was 6 this year. And that was 6 that the organization was operationally and financially responsible for. Next year, as it currently stands, the organization will be financially responsible for 4.
Well, I would say 6 is probably too many, but I don't know. Let's talk about Pan American. So the Pan American, it looked like, because I follow not a bunch, but some IPSC people from all over the world. Looks like a lot of people were here for that amount. How many people shot at IPSC Nats?
749.
749. How many days was that match?
4 days.
4 days. How many stages is that?
24 stages, 6 stages per day.
So it's like a local match, back to back to back to back.
It's so the 6 stages are a little bit different in IPSC because it's a 3-2-1 format.
Yeah.
So every zone that you shot, you knew you had 3 short courses, you had 2 medium course, and 1 long course.
Okay.
And so if I remember correctly, talking to the IROA people, they have a particular time standard per shooter per competitor, and that's about 2.5 minutes. And that's 2.5 minutes essentially with the IROA staff patching and resetting the stages. So it was a pretty aggressive timeline considering how many competitors were there. The Pan American is a little bit like the World Shoot, so it's once every 3 years, and it's basically a regional handgun championship. So everybody from the Americas basically participates. It's almost like a mini World Shoot. So there's still a teams element, just like the World Shoot. So every country that comes in, if they can field a team, they'll field a team. And so not only is there an individual performance aspect in every division, there's also a team performance aspect. And so particularly from the South American countries, that's kind of a big deal for them. So if we look at it from, let's use soccer as an example, because I think that's the easiest comparison. So, in the Americas, we have the CONCACAF. And so basically your CONCACAF is kind of how you qualify for the World Shoot. The Pan American Handgun Championship is a little bit like the CONCACAF soccer championship. So, how you perform there is kind of a lead up into the World Shoot.
Got it. And so how many competitors you may not know this breakdown. How many competitors were from America versus from international in this?
I think US side, we had, I'm going to say 50 or 60 off the top of my head, and everybody else was international. I mean, Brazil brought almost 100 competitors.
Wow.
I think Canada, Brazil has a ridiculously huge IPSC population, right? And they've actually, in some ways, liberalized their firearms laws to make it a little bit easier for people to be able to travel and whatnot. I think Canada brought about 50. There was a pretty sizable presence from Paraguay.
Probably Ecuador as well.
Yeah, Ecuador is pretty sizable. I mean, we had staff come in from Guam. We had a fellow come in from South Africa. We had somebody that was shooting for Israel. Pretty much, yeah. Well, because so in IPSC, they have 5 levels, right? So if you consider a club match, and a level 2 might be a state or section, and a level 3 is kind of an area match, they have 2 levels beyond that. And so the handgun champ, the Pan American, is a level 4, and then the World Shoot is a level 5. And so there's a little bit of cachet associated with attending and actually performing well at this match that drew quite a bit of international competitors.
Interesting. So you're a USPSA guy, obviously. You were shooting production?
Oh, this is a great story, right? So I was going to shoot production, and then I thought, well, I just shot carry optics, and I'm shooting area 4 the weekend after that. Maybe I should stick with a dot. And so I came up with my Tanfoglio Stockmaster, and I go through the equipment check, and they kind of look at it and go, wait, this gun isn't on the production list. And I go, wait, what? This gun's been out for 2 years. And there are some very legitimate reasons for that. So one of the interesting things about IPSC is that they actually have people that are responsible for a specific division, right? So in USPSA, we talk about, NRI basically handles all the division rules. Well, with IPSC, because they're larger and they have more considerations to deal with, there is somebody who's like, hey, I'm responsible for production division, right? Almost like a program manager for production. So one of the challenges with the Stockmaster, as it was explained to me, was that it had built-in slide cuts. So the irony is that IPSC is very much going through some of the same challenges we went through a couple of years ago in terms of, okay, is this factory? Like, what about this? So just to, make things a little bit easier, I just happened to bring a stock too. And so I went and switched back into production. And then, of course, the next day, the good folks at Tanfoglio basically called me and say, hey, now your gun is production legal. And I'm like, well, I'm still going to shoot production. And the irony on top of that is I forgot to check. So if you look at the results, I'm actually 47th in production optics shooting an iron sighted gun.
Solid.
So how many people are production optics?
I forget. It was like maybe 100 plus.
Okay.
Really? Only 100?
So
PO was not like as popular as CO overseas.
I mean,
I think
part of
it
it,
has to do with like the cost of the dot.
some of it is the cost of dot, and some of it is also an indicator of the difference in the firearms market in the United States compared to the firearms market overseas, right? So for here, we can go to Billy Bob's machine shop and say, hey, can you mill this
Yeah.
for whatever? And IPSC allows you to mill, but because firearms are a more restricted item, it's not like you can just go down to your local machine shop and say, hey, can you mill this for this platform? So they're a little bit more dependent on optics ready platforms that are available from the factory.
Yeah, because I was looking today on that Italian firearms group website because I liked your gun. I saw it Area 4, and I was like, wonder if they, and then I realized that you had just had it milled and it wasn't a factory optics deal.
Well, so there is a stock 2 optics ready model that's out there. So there are options. Part of it is just the manufacturing flexibility, right? I mean, in order to reach the biggest market, you're kind of stuck with the plate system that allows you the maximum flexibility between dots. And as I'm sure John Bautista and Robert White can tell you, that plate system has its own challenges.
Yeah, that's for sure a problem. It's worse on the CZs, I've noticed. I mean, I shot a bunch through Glocks with plates and never had problems with it. And I mean, it was just the stock plates that are supposedly supposed to, make you have a flat tire and drive off into a ditch if you use them on a range. That never happened, so it went fine.
Glock perfection.
It's basically perfect, is what I'm trying to say. Tony knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing that you made a comment at Area 4 before we jump into the Area 4 thing is you made a comment that not only are they going through that, but there's also pressure on the international side to revise the divisions, potentially looking at single action optics as being a division in IPSC as well.
So what was really interesting talking to the international folks was that, they're very much going through some of the same challenges we went through 2 years ago with the production and carry optics rule changes. And there just happens to be a critical mass at this point where, they are very much looking at, potentially approving some rule changes that would actually be more closely aligned with what we currently have. So there's some things that are on the table. There is, potentially a proposal out there for standard optics. And it's, there's obviously a review process that has to go forward and it has to be approved by the General Assembly. But they're certainly trying to be forward thinking and, recognizing potentially where the market is going and what could possibly be in place. So, I mean, the rationale for standard optics was rather interesting. I mean, it was to affect guys that are shooting standard right now. They're getting older and they can't see the irons anymore. So we might as well let them have a dot so they can still shoot their beloved 2011s.
I mean, that's not a bad argument in fairness. I mean, it is a game that people go to play to have fun.
Right.
But what was interesting, and you won't say this, but I'll say it for you, is that there is an element of gatekeeping and stonewalling that goes on similar to USPSA on the IPSC side. But it sounded like that there was kind of the same sort of pressure from some people who are like, these divisions really need to be updated to fit kind of, modern problems require modern solutions, as the meme goes. So
no, there really is a recognition of that. I know shooting production and production optics, there's a rule that basically says that you can have grip panels, but they're supposed to have a similar profile to the factory options. And so there's a little bit of trying to make more clear what the rules are, because we talk about USPSA, this RO does this and this RO does something different. That's something that is also recognized with the IPSC community, as well as that there is a certain amount of variation in rules interpretations. Neither of which are wrong, but there is a little bit of, okay, which guy am I getting for equipment check today? And that interpretation can potentially affect how what year you're going to run. And so there really is that recognition of, hey, we should try to refine these rules to make them a little bit more clear, especially from the perspective of you have guys that English isn't necessarily their first language, and so what is something that's very clear to us might mean something different to someone else. So it was a really productive discussion. It was really nice to see that IPSC really has very much the same challenges that we do in USPSA. We all have, they have their same concerns about the quality of match staff. They have their same concerns about, does this work or does that work? And they're, it's not just like this monolithic, okay, we're IROA, we're God, and what we say goes. There is that, okay, we do recognize that this is a potential issue, and we're trying to do what we can. Just the challenges with USPSA, you have a president and 8 board members in NRI, and in IPSC, you have 60 or 70 regions that have to basically sign on to things.
To not agree about something.
Well, that's okay. Tony's already took care of IPSC Malta.
Yes. all 5 of my peeps.
There's 5 people in the IPSC Malta region.
Well, 2 of them are like people that go all the time and shoot, but then I don't know how big their region actually is.
That's okay. So, we should all just go to IPSC Monaco so we can make a weekend of it. Let's go watch an F1 race and shoot.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Each stage is on a different yacht.
Right.
Oh, that'd be exciting.
That would be sweet.
So one thought that we had at Area 4, and I don't really see the harm in this. I'm not going to put this on Yee-min, but one thing me and Tony were kicking around is like, what if carry optics wasn't defined by the fact that it had a slide ride optic anymore? Like, what if you just called it like competition minor division and you allowed irons to shoot in it? But other than that, the rules were
you call it carry optics and just make irons, or make the optic optional. And I originally saw this idea first proposed by Roy Steadman. He's the guy that runs Shock Bottle, and he's an open GM. And he was like, yeah, I mean, there's no reason to have this like requirement, right? And it makes a lot of sense. Like, it allows people who wants to shoot irons with 140 millimeter mags, like, they could do it, and it'd be fun. Would they be competitive? No, unless if you're Jacob Hetherington. But I mean, it's going to be fun nonetheless, right? And so it doesn't. I
mean, that'd be really fun at a national level if you had some Death Stalker irons guy like Nils be like, I'm going to win carry optics nationals.
Like Nils, Steger,
no
they're going to be destroying, right? It'd be the same exact results anyway.
It'd be really awesome. It would be fun to see like optics versus like. I personally would think it would make for a very interesting match. I mean, the example that comes up is like PCC. You can shoot PCC with irons. Nobody does it, but you can do it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where nostalgia is what keeps it alive. But going forward, like let's say 20 years from now, everyone's gonna be like, well, why would you still have irons on pistols, right? The same exact thing that people said about rifles. Like when optics first came out in rifles, I heard people say, oh, this is not going to be the thing to do, but now it's.
Are you sure? I get a bunch of comments on my YouTube videos that dots are too unreliable and nobody serious carries them.
I guess, right?
Jeez.
We get a lot of good comments. It's pretty solid. Oh, and just as a bit of housekeeping, I am never going to contact you through a YouTube comment with a bunch of circles and a damn phone number. That's not me. Don't interact with that person. I ban like a dozen of those a week. So that's their new scam that they try and do. You don't send them money for cover shipping. So let's move on to Area 4 because we've been talking about these national and international events because Yee-min is an international man of mystery. Our humble seaman Yee-min. Area 4, what did you guys think about the match?
I think it was really similar to what we ran into last year. Very challenging from the perspective of you had stages that gave you just enough rope to hang yourself. So nothing that really appeared to be complex at the start. Chad's always done a really good job of utilizing the full distance of the bay. So there are definitely some shots out there where you're going, okay, I'm going to hose really fast at about 3 to 5 yards. And all of a sudden you've got a small popper at 20 yards. You've got an open paper target at about 30 to 35. So I thought it was a really good mix of stages that, really challenged all the fundamental firearms, skills and marksmanship stuff that we, honestly want to see.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because he was very in touch, and Shannon Smith does a great job with this on his stages too. Like, there's the one obvious plan that everybody trying to blend positions comes up with. Like, okay, you want to blend positions? This is what you get to blend in on, and it's just some stupid hard target like a tuxedo at 12 yards, or it's just far enough away. You're like, that's a really high risk target. I don't think I should be doing that. So it was definitely set up a lot of risk versus reward type scenarios. And there were a couple stages where there were 2 or 3 viable stage plans on our squad. And I mean, our squad was, solid, like upper mid tier squad, I'd say. I mean, had a bunch of M's and 1G who was having an identity crisis and couldn't decide which hand to hold the gun with. But
wait, John Batista's a G too?
He's left-handed. I was talking about him. He's left-handed.
Oh,
okay. I was actually talking about you and forgot John was a G, but John was with us. But I thought the match was pretty solid. I thought the match flow worked pretty good. We finished ahead of schedule. I mean, we shot 13 stages, and we were done by about 3:30.
I mean, to be fair, though, those were like half the squads there on that day that we shot, right?
It's true. Yeah, there were only 6 squads shooting on 13 stages, and we were the second to last squad finished.
Like we were slowing down.
Squads were, they were smaller than ours.
Yeah.
So it was a good warm-up day for the match to get the match staff kind of acclimated to how the stuff needed to flow. So hopefully the guys who shot on the weekend had a better time of it even than we did. But that was a pretty good match. What do you think about the match, Tony?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, nothing really to complain about. It was a good time. Nice stages. Like none of the stages were like, oh man, this is lame or anything. No, it was just solid shooting, all about execution.
Speaking of execution.
Yeah, that I had a 0 of that
day. Oh my god, Tony got executed by.
So let me tell you about my master plan, right? So I was like, all right, I'm going to come into this match. I'm going to shoot 85% of the stage winner every single stage, and I'm just going to see how I do. Right? I'm going to shoot really conservatively. Let's go. And to be fair, I've had literally a day of dry fire with that gun before going, so I was like, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. So the first stage comes up. I call all my shots. I'm like, easy. And then the guy's calling out the hits. And then when he gets to the back, 2 mic. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. My shots seem to be going a little too high. And next stage, I'm like, okay, maybe I just suck. And then another mic. I'm just like, okay, I'm calling all my shots. What's happening? And I found out that so this is the only gun that I ever zeroed at 15 yards. I usually zero at 25 all the time, but I zeroed at 15 for this one. And I think due to I don't know what happened, but by the time it got to 25 yards, it was 4 or 5 inches higher than where I was aiming. And yeah, after that happened, I had those 2 dumpster fire stages. Like, all right, I need to step up just the pace just a little bit to catch up. So third stage comes around. I think that was the one where I transitioned to my right hand. I thought it was going to be like, oh, it's going to be easy, right? And
because 2 holsters, which hand's the strong hand?
Yeah. So
whichever stage you start with the gun.
And I'm shooting with my right hand, and after the shot breaks, my mag falls out. And I was like, oh, no, this is not the way to go. So yeah, after those dumpster fires, I was like, all right, this match is over. Let me just go to like learning and experimentation mode. And yeah, that's how I ended up the match with like 40 mics or something.
It was strong to very strong. Old Tony we were having a good bit talking trash in the match. It's like, you're going to be lucky to finish the match with your cobbled together space gun. He's like, no way, it's 100% reliable.
Yeah,
and then you're like,
it was 100% reliable.
After the first stage, I was like, oh no.
I mean, I didn't zero my gun properly, so that was my first issue. And the second issue is I didn't file down the mag release for the other hand, right? I mean, because the little bit of trivia, the SIG P320 mags, they're slightly narrower than the TSO mags by about like 1/100th of an inch. And that causes just enough of a deviation where if you bump the mag release just a little bit, the mag will fall out. So the only way to really kind of remedy that is either open your grip so much that nothing's touching the mag release, or buy a Shadow 2 mag release and then Dremel it until it gets to the right thickness. Or the route that I'm going to take is just going to file down the mag catch and then slap on a Shadow 2 paddle, and hopefully that fixes it. But we'll see.
Wait, what about actually
be sure and use your hand tap again?
What about Checkmate mags? No,
yes,
that's too generic.
What does he look like? He's made of money. He just spent $11,000 on a janky open gun.
Wow. Yeah, Tom from the Paracast would be proud of you, Tony. trying to
Yeah.
save a little bit of money and you end up spending.
Oh, dumb solutions only, man.
You are way too smart to be this dumb about you spend money. But yeah, it was really sad because we were talking trash leading in the match like we always do.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to dunk on you by 15%." I was like,
Oh, I
"Whatever.
thought I was
You're
gonna
going to have zero.
destroy it.
You're going to have a zero because you're going to DNF because your gun's going to break." And the truth was closer to where I was.
The truth is, I got beat by a crippled with one leg. I mean,
this is true.
I don't feel happy about that.
Yeah. So for those who didn't catch up with me at the match, I was shooting Area 4. I am the Big Dad Energy is not just a shtick. I am actually a Little League soccer coach. So on Wednesday night, I was soccer coaching and I didn't warm up with the team and ripped a shot on goal to have, oh, that's really uncomfortable, come through down my quad. So couldn't, kick anymore in practice that night. I was like, oh, this isn't good. And Nationals is 3 weeks away. So, I just start eating a steady diet of ibuprofen, 800 milligrams at a time, all the way through basically Saturday morning. And when we were doing the walkthrough for the stages on, was it Thursday? There's a stage with a low port. And like initially I go down like from the draw position, it made sense to kind of step with your left foot and go down to your right knee, like immediately off the draw. I do that. And then I try and stand up fast to kind of mimic getting after a target on the right. And it felt like my soul left my body. It was just like, "Ugh!" And I was like, well, this isn't going to go well. And so ended up having to go down to my left knee. At one point in the match, I did go down to my right knee, but it was the final position. So I just put my left knee down for unload and show clear, switched and stood up from my left knee, and I was good. But I couldn't get on the gas all day. So, I still had a pretty good result for me. I was 88% of the open winner, which is pretty solid. It's not too far off where I would have, in an optimum scenario hoped to be. So even as a GIMP, I still had a solid match. I had fun. I learned plenty doing it. I just wish I could have gone faster. So I thought it was a fun match.
You actually look pretty controlled, even for being, on the disabled list. So, a little bit more controlled and a little bit less, I'm just going to be super efficient. So, it was a really good performance.
But what's funny about it is at 88%, you'd think like, that's pretty solid. That's got to be top 10. It's like, nope, that's 17. So it's just like, there's that much heat at the match.
I thought you were top 5. I was like, this guy's shooting real well. Top 5 of that day, but
yeah, for that day I was top 5. Then all the rest of the heat showed up and I plummeted through the ranks. But old bearded shooter who's sandbagging, he won A class or whatever, and I think he got a match bump to M as a result of that match. And so I don't know, I thought it was a fun match. It was a good crew we hung out with. Tulsa's a great city. I'm gonna just keep beating Yee-min over the head with this. I would love for Tulsa to host nationals because it has the best infrastructure as far as creature comfort is concerned.
Tulsa
about making an event.
Fantastic.
It is amazing. They've got good food. There's a bunch of dudes with wax mustaches who hang out there. It's really just like, next level.
The way I described it was what Seattle used to be like. So, that's fantastic.
Tulsa's pretty nice. It'll be a lot nicer once they finish that construction on I-75 and we're not taking, 15-minute detours just to get to the north or south side of town. The facility's really nice. We used to have nationals there, and it'd be nice to kind of consider as an option. It's a fairly centralized location. There already is a little bit of an existing infrastructure in place. So, who knows?
Has plenty of stock of hotels. It's got a good airport to fly into and out of. It does all the stuff that we ask our ranges to do, other than have running water down by the bays. That'd be a nice touch, but it's okay because under Yee-min's reign of terror, he's only going to get restroom trailers for nationals, no more porta-johns, right, Yee-min?
Sure. We'll figure out
air-conditioned restroom trailers.
Oh my gosh, yeah, air-conditioned restroom trailers, and not just a hayride to your next stage. It'll be an air-conditioned party bus. Let me see where I can figure out the money for that.
So one thing I do want to talk about this. I was going to wrap it up at about an hour, but if you guys are okay with it, we'll go long for another 10 because I think this could be a fun thought exercise. Like, just pretend money is no issue. Let's assume that all the shooters are going to be there regardless of what the match costs. Like, what are the value adds that you could do? Like, I think restroom trailers would honestly be a big creature comfort shooter value add. Like, and it's a big step. Like, if you think about it, it's a big step towards getting women on the range. And, even if they're just spectating there with their husbands or whatever, having non-porta-johns to, use as the facilities kind of makes sense. What are some other things you guys can think of as far as creature comforts that were, if you were to say, what differentiates this one match from every other match in the country?
Bluetooth scoreboards on each stage.
Okay,
so you can see the time, the running time of the person who's running. That'd be pretty sweet.
So that feature, I think, actually exists in Practice Score right now, and that was actually something that was under discussion to have at the other range, because it actually had the network infrastructure to be able to support that.
Well, I mean, it's this Bluetooth connection, right? So you don't really need to run it off of Wi-Fi or anything. It's just
no, you don't need to. But I mean, there was already the electrical infrastructure in place to be able to support having some kind of a leaderboard so that you could see, that sort of information up front.
Oh yeah, that's probably number one is the staff reset.
Staff reset. I was going to say, I can't believe we didn't go to that first, but staff reset basically should be compulsory for a nationals event. I think even for an area event, like, if you're going to make it a championship, let it be a championship and kind of do it upright. Like, I don't know if it is super expensive, and I mean, making scoring more accessible makes it play better for like media type stuff. Cause I mean, ultimately the caliber of media coming out of these events are going to dictate how much sponsors are paying to participate. Like, how many other people are going to know about the match besides the 400 or 500 who are signed up and their 400 or 500 buddies back at home.
Right. Well, I mean, so the sponsor tent, and that having it being a stop, that was kind of interesting. It was a good step in the right direction. I think another one of the things when we think about nationals is that we generally, at least from what my experience is, that it's not really an experience for the general public. So you could always look at nationals as being almost like a mini SHOT Show. So that way you've got the opportunity for the public to come in and say, hey, here's all these things you can take a look at. That could potentially provide a little bit more return on investment for the sponsors, traveling down to support the match. One of the things that was interesting about the Pan American is that the reason why that, they generally did staff reset is they pretty much told you up front, we are scoring while you're shooting. And so there's some instances where, that could be a little bit of a challenge. Like, I had a buddy of mine from Bolivia, and there's a couple of videos on his Instagram where, they're already taping and scoring, and then they look up and it's like, oh wait, why is this guy like suddenly behind me? But it happened. But for the most part, it was very upfront. Like, we are scoring behind you. And so, if you watched as competitors shot, depending on how the stage was set up, the staff are already coming down and the score pad guy's in the middle, and he just looks up and they're just doing the hand signals. I mean, it got to the point where it's like, okay, we got 2 Alpha Charlie, Alpha Charlie would be like this, right? And you could very easily see that. So they would be scoring so that by the time you got to the end, the only thing that you had left to score was basically whatever was downrange. And so that I know within USPSA, we have a little bit of a different approach to that. Sometimes split scoring works. Sometimes scoring head is not something that, is generally promoted, because we do occasionally have issues with coordination and whatnot. But it's sort of a different expectation that with IPSC, we are going to score behind you. Make sure you have a delegate. So that was something that, and when I was squatted with JJ, he was always behind me. So I tell him like, hey, you delegate for me and I delegate for you. And so that was just something we sort of built in as a cultural thing where, even with the other competitors, I would basically go down and I would look and basically tell them, hey, this is what you got. So that way they knew what was scored behind them. So, I mean, staff reset is possible. There's just, there's some logistical issues to kind of work through to say, hey, this is what it works. And the other thing, not to keep dragging this on, is that with the IPSC 321, right, staff reset is not something that's maybe totally crazy, because you could have you have a stage that's only got 10, 12 rounds. Like, that's something that could be easily staff reset. And if you look at USPSA, we traditionally look at, relatively high round count stages. So your staffing requirements for those stages it can be a little bit of a challenge to go, okay, well, if I want staff reset for this 32
Dude,
round,
we're not thinking about constraints. We're thinking about shooter experience, the
Yeah.
competitive
Like what would
experience.
you
How
want to
can
have in a
let's
match?
assume that all of that is taken care of.
but yeah,
and-
no, okay, so we got staff reset, we got like actual nice bathrooms. So I think I was talking with Adam Roper, he's the Oklahoma section coordinator, and we've both experienced having those shower trailers deployed overseas. Okay, fine, like, so you have that at nationals, and so when you're done, instead of having to drive back to your hotel and get cleaned up for the award ceremony, like, you could actually do it at the range. That would be something that would be really interesting.
What about like a golf
Beverages.
cart? I was gonna say like a concierge, like golf cart type service where rather than like we have this cooler that runs out of water all the damn time between the bays, you have the cart girls that come by and pass out snacks. Like they did that at Dragon's Cup, and it was a really nice touch. Even
Yeah.
though Dragon was 1,000,000 degrees, and we all thought we were going to die when we shot it, but
No, that's actually really nice. I mean, we've done that. So we have the gridiron coming up in after nationals, and that was something we did before, where we basically essentially had snack girls, driving around in carts and delivering, the sort of high energy stuff that you would need to kind of sustain yourself through the day. So it wasn't just, yes, Kevin.
could you read that out loud for the podcast crew? Please?
No, but I will totally explain that story here in a minute. So
just read it out loud for the podcast
Kevin.
crew, buddy.
Oh, national
Tony, in your best Yee-min Lin voice, read this out loud. I'll read it out loud, you cowards. National needs more penis. That's what he says.
Oh my gosh! Well,
This
there's
is a man who runs a business selling to this crowd too.
Hey, there's a really good story behind that. So, but I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, having that kind of competitor support, so that there's this sense of you guys are competitors, you want to perform your best. We're trying to create an environment that allows you to perform your best. That would be something that would be very helpful. Having been to the Pan American and experienced the opening and closing ceremonies, it really was something that was, it made you feel special, right? Like, we're so happy to see you here.
I don't know that opening and closing ceremonies would fly in America, if I'm honest. I mean, it's
Well,
not like we have
again,
a
it's
delegation of states where it's like, yeah, I'm repping Texas, so let's wear hats and stuff. But I do think that an easy bridge to cross would be only use waterproof targets at nationals.
This is true. And there's definitely some lessons learned. Russell out of York Practical Shooters, we talked about a lot of really good ideas that he, concepts that he's seen working in matches. I mean, that dude is probably worked 3 times the number of matches I have. And that just getting those sort of ideas out there and disseminating them and going like, hey, what about this? What about this? Just really something to make sure that the presentation matches the expectation. I mean, if it's a nationals, I get it, make sure everything, is spotless and, everything looks nice and tight from a perception perspective. If we look at Utah State, Homestead cabinets with Clay Grover, I mean, he did a phenomenal job with dressing up the stages so that they looked like super professional. Right. And
I got one for you. I just thought of this. Porters who move your bags between stages for you. You just put there's carts at the range. You just get there, you put your bags down on the cart, do your thing. When it's time to go between stages, the porters kind of come over there and carry the stuff to the next stage for you.
This ain't golf, man.
Oh, well, sir, this is the United States. We would have to pay a lot more for those porters than if we shot.
Hey, money is not an object because we're doing such a good job with our media that the sponsors are paying for all this. We're just there to be pretty faces on cameras at that point.
Well, I mean, you're going to have to make sure you have a Big Dad Energy jersey for that.
I was talking to the guys at Go Fast Don't Suck about getting one made, and then I got lazy. So that is going to happen eventually. And there's other Big Dad Energy things in the pipeline. It's going to be solid.
All right, then. So, yeah. So to go back to Kevin's comment over there. So I met Kevin Izat at Magnus Cup back in 2019. And so there was a written stage briefing that we were covering, and somebody just asked the question, what does the stage have about male body parts, and it just ended up becoming this this meme where everybody in the squad was like, well, it's not specified in the stage briefing, and just lots of more and more male body parts being mentioned. And so let me see here, who are those two brothers down in Midland, Odessa? No, the Midland, Odessa. It's Charlie Berry and his brother Teak Allen.
Yeah.
So Teak Allen actually had a mashup of this to kind of highlight Charlie's experience. And it's one of those videos that when you're having a bad day. So Kevin and I, every time we see each other, every time you're having a bad day, you just look up Teak Allen's Instagram account and you see this video and you just can't help but laughing.
Did you just say brothers with two different last names?
No, Teak Allen is his first name.
Yeah, it's Charlie and Teak. Yeah, Charlie and Teak Allen Berry. So I mean, they so that was the same time I met Charlie, Teak Allen, Marco and Billy Dotson. So it's just it was really cool. I mean, I met them for the first time, and then a couple years later, here I'm hanging out in Midland, Odessa, seeing what sort of amazing range Marco has built.
Yeah, it's a cool story. We need to tell the story of Marco's range at some point because it is pretty cool what he was able to do there. And we need more ranges. So I know that, there are some people who have bought some land that we know that are in the process of trying to figure out what building a range is like and what that is. But I mean, if that's you, if you're at all listening to this and in that stage of life where you can consider doing it, it's always something you kind of kicked about. Like, we need more ranges. Like, infrastructure is probably the single biggest threat that USPSA faces. Like, we're going to max out on volunteer support and we're going to max out on ranges. And I mean, there's new majors every year, and those kind of cannibalize the RO support that we have. And ROs can only work so many matches. Like, you can't work 1,000 matches a year. It just isn't possible. There's going to be weekends where they stack up and overlap, and we don't have the volunteers to hold the pads and actually, put on these level 2s. So build a range, and then start hosting matches. Let's make it happen. Well, guys, I'm about to fall asleep because it's way past my bedtime. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about, or should we call it a night?
Let's call it a night.
Yeah, call it a night. Thanks again for your time as always, guys.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care, guys.
All right, peace out.